Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this session. And thank you for attending this session during our Learning Week 2025. Delighted to be joined by my colleague Heidi, who works in our comms team, who is going to present on some top tips that you can apply for any social media for your clubs or your practice. So, Heidi, thank you, and over to you.
Hello. Yes, welcome. My name is Heidi. I am the Media and Communications Officer at BF. I've been at BF since 2022. I first got into fencing at uni back in 2018, and I did the social media for my club in my final year. And that's basically how I got into it. I do a lot of the content creation and scheduling on BF socials, and I'm also part of the media team at our events. You'll probably see me around at other in-person things like our GBL pathway camps and come try events and things like this. So in terms of the learning objectives for the session, by the end of it, you'll know the basics of how to create your own brand. You'll understand how to make your branding more accessible. You'll know what performs well on social media and what doesn't. You'll also learn about photo and social media risk management and understand the promotional opportunities that are available through BF. So first off, creating your brand, an intro. So first off, it's really important to put yourself in the mind of who you're actually trying to engage with, like who you're trying to reach out to. So if I were that person, what would I want to see? So first off, like what area of the country are you operating in? Since it will impact like any in-person opportunities that you can promote and like get involved in, as well as your target audience. Based on this as well, you can identify like who your like any sort of gaps in that market. Say for example, if your area is lacking like specific coaches or fencers in a weapon, based on this, you can understand who you're hoping to reach, like beginners, international fencers, like for your audiences. And then you can understand your aims and also what sets you apart from those other clubs. So first off, I mean, this is for like brand new setting up a club. So for people who are looking to set up their own clubs, first off, what are you going to call it? Are you going to keep it location based, or are you going to keep it transferable to other locations? So say for example, if I had like insert place fencing club, or do you want it to be like applicable to other locations that you want, if you wanted to like expand it in the future? For example, if you had like a word followed by a location, it's easier to transfer that brand to other locations. Whereas if you do the whole insert place fencing club, you can't really do a lot with it. It might be a bit awkward if you try and move it elsewhere. You can also play on fencing terms or create something unique to set yourself apart from other clubs. You might come back to deciding your name later on after you thought of your visual identity, since they kind of go hand in hand and you might have a better idea later on. Also important to check that no other clubs have the same name, because you'll just make confusion. So moving on to visual identity, based on the audience that you've identified and your aims, what kind of visual identity are we going with? So what kind of color scheme, for instance, will resonate the most with your audience, because colors have different connotations, and what kind of design elements? So look at what other clubs are using and basically use one that will set you apart. So a lot of clubs, for instance, use blue because it gives an image of like trustworthiness, calmness, and overall it just looks cool and sporty. But you're not really going to set yourself apart if you add to the sea of like blue tracksuits and socks that appear at events. So, I mean, you can do that, but also what would you want to do differently? You can also change your design elements later on to suit like different aims and different campaigns. You can adapt it slightly. We'll go into this a bit more later on. This is also relevant because BF has just launched its new board strategy. And we've gone for like a slightly softer look with these like pencil images you can see in the corner, which is based more on like participation rather than current images, which is more sort of GBR based and more performance based. So going into more visual identity stuff, how do you pick a color scheme? So you've picked one color for your club. We've established that. So how do I then create a scheme to incorporate it? So color schemes are based on complementary and contrasting colors. So you have your main color, which you've chosen as your primary, and then you have your secondary. This is just like an additional color that like complements and like varies your color scheme, really. It adds a bit more variation to your brand. And then you have your accent color, which is used sort of sparingly in order to highlight specific elements. And finally, then you have the neutral colors, which can be backgrounds or text that balances out those colors. Moving on to logos. So logo, very important part of your club. You picked your color scheme, now you need a logo to represent it. So firstly, where's your inspiration coming from? You can look at other clubs, what are they doing? You can also look at other logos beyond just fencing. They don't have to be from fencing clubs. You can choose like parts of any logo that you think works well. So then you put your ideas together. You don't need to try and incorporate every single bit of the logo that you like, because to be honest, it will probably look like a bit of a mess. Instead, the best idea is to take elements that you feel work well in the inspiration that you've chosen and play on what works best. Remember to make it yours. Don't try and copy other people's logos because you don't really want to get sued. So would avoid that. Something important to remember is how does it translate to different platforms, or like when you decrease the size, like say, for example, if you're looking at it on your phone, picking a simpler logo often translates better on merch and physical products as well. And again, it looks better on your phone. It's also good to save it in various formats like PNG with transparent backgrounds. SVG works well for, again, merchandise, printing, that sort of thing. So what if you want to create a logo and you have no graphic design knowledge? That's totally fine. You can commission someone to do it. BF has used Fiverr in the past, and it's basically a platform for freelancers who do commissions for all sorts of things. And they've also created like animated logos, which is really cool. You can also reach out to different areas that different members of the community who may enjoy graphic design. If like a budget is a constraint for you, consider maybe paying in the form of fencing lessons or something like this. Also not included on this slide, you can also just learn how to create a logo. I would recommend, it's actually really fun and it really helps you in the long term. So yeah. Now you got your brand, you got your visuals. Now, how do you put it together for your social media content? So Canva is amazing. It's your best friend. It's a really popular tool for different social media brands and for good reason. It offers loads of different templates that can be edited and pre-made graphics and photos. My favorite part is probably the alignment tools, actually, which is really random. You can see in those screenshots, like the little like purple lines that sort of align your content together. So it's all on the same line. And also like how it's spaced. Sorry, bit of a nerdy tangent, but there you go. Basically, this helps to make your images look more even and less cramped. Spacing out your content is really important. I also recommend Figma. I really like it. It helps if you want to do more advanced graphics and also want to play around more with masking and things like that. So those are just two of my recommendations. Oops. Photos. So the photos that you choose for your brand to represent it will depend on who your audience is. As we'll discuss later as well, we found that they perform the best on BF socials. So as I say, really important. If you're wanting to get beginners into your club, faceless photos of people probably aren't the best choice. People often say that seeing like faceless photos of people can be intimidating. And honestly, that was the same for me when I wanted to join fencing. Especially as fencing often appeals to people who aren't really into sport. So having a more welcoming environment through photos of people being happy and things like that will make them more likely to engage. Actually, at the BF Community Awards a few years ago, Exeter Uni Fencing Club actually won Best University. And one of the reasons why they won it was because of this. For their social media, they used a lot of photos of people smiling. They made a point to avoid the faceless mask pictures, which really helped them to increase their membership. And finally, representation, genders, disabilities, ethnicities, really important, helps to create that sense of belonging. And finally, safety and clothing guidelines, always really important to adhere to that as well. So now we have taking fencing photos. Comes to practice, I can't say I'm an expert, but I've definitely improved since I first started working at BF. Probably my main thing is go for angles. You can do this even on a phone, sit on the floor, because head-on fencing photos can be a bit boring, whereas angles help to make them look a bit more dynamic. You want to get as close to the action as possible, but still from a safe distance. You don't want to get stabbed. I normally position myself at one end of the piece, slightly behind the referee, but also making sure to check that they're okay with me being there, because it can put some people off. Media accreditation and volunteering will be discussed later on, so I'll discuss that in more detail. If you're using a professional camera, I've also listed some of the settings on here, the autofocus tracking mode, and also a high shutter speed, but a low ISO. So now that we've gone over photos, let's go over your voice and your tone, because that is another part of your brand. It will affect the type of content that you put out on your socials. So first up, there are actually two different things. You have your voice. This is the constant, unchanging, it sums up your brand's personality. And then you have your tone of voice, and this is the inflection of your brand's voice. So you think about how your tone of voice changes in certain circumstances, depending on who you're talking to, what kind of situation you're in. It's exactly the same thing here. So how do I decide my brand's voice? I'd recommend plotting how you want your voice to come across on the spectrum, which is kindly provided by the Nielsen Norman Group. So thanks to them. In a different color, you can then plot your tone, how you want to come across in different scenarios. So whereas your voice might be more formal, on socials, you might lighten your tone to be more enthusiastic, which then becomes even more elevated if, for example, someone wins a medal. If your voice is normally quite casual and funny, you're not going to use the same tone when responding to complaints or something along those lines. Otherwise, people will think you're a bit out of touch, to be honest. So here we have an example from BF. Our normal voice is in blue, and you can see how that's applied to various scenarios. As I say, you can see that for medal posts, we put on a more enthusiastic tone. For safeguarding course announcements, for instance, they're more serious, as you would imagine, but at the same time, they can't be 100% formal because we're still trying to encourage people to go and to create enthusiasm for them. And you can see that all of our tones are respectful. It's part of our values. You can see it in the corner, so that makes sense. So again, when you're thinking about your voice and your tone for your club or whatever else you're trying to promote, think about where you'd plot that and how it would change. Finally, once you've decided all of that, now it's time to put it together in a style guide. So this is really useful. It basically sums up your brand, as well as to give examples about where and when to apply specific things. You can have your primary logo and then a secondary logo, and where and when things are applied. Your primary one might be a little icon, for instance, whereas your secondary might be text-based or vice versa. You can also discuss how much space to leave around them, so they're not cramped in a corner and things like that. Different colors, fonts, things like that. It's also really useful to give to designers if you want merch and things like that. You can find loads of examples of this online, so I would really recommend that. So back to our learning objectives. We've gone through the basics of creating a brand, and now we'll move on to accessibility. So in the spirit of this year's Learning Week, which is focused on disability inclusion and accessibility, this is very relevant. So first off, accessible colors. This is the thing that's helped me the most in creating social posts. This contrast checker is so useful. I cannot stress that enough. It will show you what colors are readable and on what backgrounds, as well as what style of fonts. And it will inform the when to use part of your style guide. So here, if you look at this section, that pink circle there, that shows that a light font on a red background is not accessible. You cannot read it. So here, how has that helped me with my posts as part of BF? Well, first off, I used to use the light font on the red background, so I stopped using that. Now it might be used for like big, bold, like short headings, and definitely not whole paragraphs. Like the Learning Week, for instance, that brand, that uses like the red backgrounds for headings, but not paragraphs. I also changed the background to white, which makes it a lot easier to read. The same goes for the paragraph of the text. That's gone, since it's not only difficult to read, but also it's just not that interesting. I'm going to see a load of text and think, I'm not going to read that. We also changed the date format, which I didn't mention before, but it's still relevant. We changed it from numbers to written dates, since they can be a bit confusing to read otherwise. It's also a bit confusing if someone's from America or somewhere like that. Moving on to accessible fonts. So this will again inform your style guide. Accessible fonts are clear, evenly spaced, and not overly stylized. So I put a couple of good examples here. It's also worth remembering that you may need a license to use specific fonts. More info on that at the end. And yeah, you can learn more using the link that's provided here. I'll try and send out the slides afterwards, which will have all the links on. So moving on to alt text. So this is really important for people with visual impairments. So for example, if people need to use screen reading. Some pictures don't need alt text. So for example, if they're like borders or used for decoration. However, for photos or graphics that contain info, it's always a good thing to include. It's really easy to do. You're basically just describing what is in the image or photo, including any text. And I've added a link again that you can use to help you. So the question, why should we care about accessibility and representation? Well, first off, to put it bluntly, it's just a good thing to do. It's also very easy to do. A lot of software these days have built-in tools to add alt text. Some even do it automatically, and you can just like edit it if like something is inaccurate or something like that. Same goes for like captioning on videos. A lot of that is done automatically. Also, I think it's really good to remember that even if we're not disabled right now, we could be tomorrow. If I suddenly go blind and no one's got alt text on anything, I'm going to be in a pretty difficult position where I'm not going to be able to engage with things like I used to. So that's always a good thing to bear in mind. Finally, having better accessibility and representation increases your membership by engaging with those who wouldn't feel welcome otherwise, which, to be honest, just increases your club's income. It also increases your chance of getting funding from organizations like Sport England because they really care about accessibility and representation. So going on to graphics. This is an example of a bad graphic. It's not good. No comment on the actual seminar. I'm talking about how it's advertised. So first off, the text is really tiny. It's difficult to read, and yeah, it looks boring. To make it even worse, the white on red makes it more difficult to read. There is a mix of different font styles and icons and things to like add something there. But even then, it's got no photos. It's just a wall of text. It's just not interesting. Don't do this. So with that in mind, another case study, a post I did really recently. Every year at BF, we do a post congratulating people on their A-level results and getting into uni. So with that in mind, how would I go about creating a graphic? So first off, as well as accessibility considerations, my aims are to create engagement. As we'll discuss it in more detail later, but people tend to react better to photos more so than just text. I also wanted to create a welcoming environment to encourage more people in the space and to show that it's a fun environment. I also wanted to keep it relatable, representing many unis rather than just like one or two. And lastly, of course, it's got to be on brand. So here is what I came up with. So I added in loads of photos of fences like smiling in the background, which helps to create that welcoming environment. So one of our board objectives for this year is to create like a more welcoming environment, specifically encouraging like women and girls into our sport and like keeping them in the sport. Originally, I thought, okay, I could just use one or two photos and like have them at the forefront because, as I just said, photos perform better. But then I thought, actually, that's not very relatable to everyone. People who aren't from those specific unis aren't gonna like really react and like and share since, well, it's not them. In fact, they could even have a rivalry with that uni, so that would be a bit awkward. So that's why I decided to keep the emphasis on the good luck message, which is made more prominent by the large text and the white background. I still wanted to keep the image easy to look at, so the collage is quite muted. It's in the background to not completely overpower everything and to keep the emphasis on the good luck. I also added some pencil, star, and like underlining motifs to keep it relevant to the uni space. This is kind of an example of how, as I mentioned earlier, your voice changes or like your tone changes to match like whatever campaign you're currently doing. Lastly, it's on brand through the font, color scheme, the angles, and the slashes. And just on a general note, things are spaced out to not make it messy. So yeah, if you haven't like guessed, I quite like making art and graphics. And this is just some advice on how your aims inform your graphics and your social media content. Right, so we've been over the basics of creating your brand and then how to make it more accessible. So now we're going to go over what actually performs well on socials. So here are a number of ways that you can promote your brand and what we'll be going through. So first off, there are loads of different ways. You've got outreach, connecting with organizations and charities and schools in your area. You've got the press, so you can tell the press about what you're doing, why it's interesting, why they should care. You've got newsletters, so collating your news into a newsletter to send out to your members. You've got merchandise, so banners, which I'd strongly recommend not having like dates in your banners to make it so that you can use them like just you can increase their longevity. I can't speak, sorry. Sorry, you can use them like all year round, what I'm trying to say. QR codes are really useful as well. You can link people to those in like any website pages and things in a really useful way. And finally, for the purpose of this, we're going to be going over social media. Also, just on a general note, let BF know what you're doing by emailing media@britishfencing.com. We always like to know and we'll share. So in terms of BF social media, this is where it sits. So first off, everything goes on the news post as a web page and then is advertised as a news post. That then funnels down into our direct comms like email, PR, WhatsApp, and then it goes into the social media. So each section is smaller because not everything on the website is relevant to share on like socials, for instance. So this may be different for your club. You just need to basically work out your strategy and where things sit. So in terms of BF's social platforms, in generalized terms, Facebook tends to be older and more established, whereas Instagram is younger. Instagram also offers more opportunities to share your content and to reach those outside of your audience. So for example, you can repost, you can tag people, you can collaborate with people. Your content can also appear on the Explore page. X or Twitter is more established, but also there is a decline in user engagement. LinkedIn is more for vacancies, partnerships, but also international achievements, because that tends to be relevant for stakeholders. So like funding considerations. YouTube also offers long and short form videos with the potential for monetization. So we're currently planning on using that more in future. It's worth deciding which platforms will fit into your brand, and also how your tone of voice and content will change based on each platform, depending on your audience. So scheduling posts. I would strongly recommend using a platform where basically you can share multiple posts in one go. So for us, we use a platform called SocialBee, but others do exist. This makes it so much easier to just share everything in one go without having to go to Instagram and then go to Twitter and then Facebook and all that jazz. It's also really good to create and schedule your content ahead of time. It could be just generic content, like general awareness about your club or whatever it is that you're advertising, so that you always have something going out and you stay active. It's okay to repurpose old content as well, such as you can do like throwback posts, for instance. Chances are not everyone has seen the original anyway, and you're creating something new with it. So our top tips for successful posts. So the first thing to do is decide, what is your aim? Do you want your social following? Do you want people signing up to courses or events? Do you want more income or awareness? In general terms, photos perform better than graphics, like I've mentioned previously. People also like relatability, so don't be a faceless organization. Show who you are, show who your coaches are, athletes, things like this. It will make your club feel more welcoming. You can use memes and trends, but obviously this depends on your tone of voice. At BF, because we're in NGB, we don't really do that because it doesn't really fit with our voice. Inviting engagement is always good. So you can ask questions and polls. You can do this on like Instagram stories. Tagging and collaborations, like I've mentioned before. Tagging is a thing that exists across basically all platforms. Collaborations are more of an Instagram thing. So you have an option to like request another account to collaborate with you, and it will appear on both of your feeds. So you'll be able to interact with like their audience and yours. So you increase your engagement. And finally, a call to action to achieve goal or the strategy. So say, for example, if you want people signing up to courses and events, provide a link to that. If you want people going over to your website, again, add a link. And finally, I said finally already, but I'm going to say it again. Be active, even if the engagement doesn't happen immediately. Just keep posting the content. All right, so with that in mind, what are BF's most popular posts? When I decided to add examples of BF's most popular posts, I knew exactly what they were going to be. These two here, which are Amelie winning Cadet World Championships, and also when the men's FA team won gold at Junior Euros. So the reason why these are popular is because they showcase people's achievements, they show emotion, and also they're recognizable within our community. Like, people support these people, so it makes sense. Our least popular posts, like I've sort of mentioned before, are announcements, reminders, things like this. Just because you don't get engagement on every post, and you won't, that doesn't mean that these posts are any less important, because the people need to know about them, essentially. We also did a number of Instagram reels, which I'll discuss on the next slide, at Cardiff, and we collaborated with a number of federations, which really improved the engagement on those. So, going on to reels and shorts. If you don't know what a reel or a short is, on Instagram reels, I mean, they're both effectively the same thing. They're like portrait videos, 15 to 60 seconds long, really easy to do. And yeah, on Instagram, they're called reels. On YouTube, they're called YouTube shorts. You don't need a fancy camera to do it. You can literally just do it on your phone. Super easy, as I've said. So you can, on Instagram, you can add trending music. However, as I'll mention later on, You will need to change it for platforms beyond Instagram, like if you decide to like share your reel elsewhere. You can use reels or shorts for all sorts of things. Point of view, grassroots content, like an experience of, I don't know, like day in the life of a competition organizer or something like this, or of an athlete, whatever. You can also do interviews, which you can add music in the background, as I've already mentioned, and you'll need to reduce the volume just so that you'll actually hear what they're saying. General idea, keep it short and snappy, helps to increase engagement. And you can add captions for accessibility, which makes it a lot easier to engage with people that are visually, have hearing problems, basically. So moving on to live streaming. So one of the comms that we use at BF events is live streaming. So you can live stream on platforms like YouTube, Facebook. You can do this really easily using a tripod and a phone. If you want to, though, you can use OBS, which is what we use. And basically, I've added in a guide here, but you can add in overlays and just make it look a lot fancier. You can add like placeholder images. And once you've done the live streaming, you can then cut the clips and use them for reels and shorts and direct people to your YouTube channel. So you can do like best hit compilations or any other thing that you fancy. Just as a side note, non-BF's live streaming is not allowed at BF events. It's just the official one, just as a reminder. So moving on to analytics. Analytics are a really good way of showing you what is and isn't working on your socials. If you use a platform from which to share like all of your posts, like say, for example, I mentioned SocialBee earlier, this may come as part of that. Or you can go to each platform individually and it may provide the metrics in more detail. So you need to choose what metrics you're comparing to get accurate data over time. You can see views, interactions, new followers, all within a specific date range. And you can see performance insights like which type of posts are doing better. Like, are they photos? Are they carousels, which is like more than one image? Or are they reels? You can also look at the date and time of posting. So when are they doing best? And also where people came from to see your posts. Like, are they followers? Are they non-followers? This is particularly relevant if you're hoping to engage with those outside of your own following and try and get people into your club. Demographics as well. Where are people located? What gender are they? What age? Paid adverts as well. So this is something that we use as part of BF. Might have seen them, who knows? Paid ads are a really great way of engaging with those who don't already follow your page, we find. So you can do this on Facebook and Instagram. So you can target an audience from a specific location, whether or not they like/follow your page, or based on their interests or their occupations. Just as a general note, fencing shows up as an interest. That means building fences, not the sport, just to avoid confusion. So, and also the content that you put in your advert can be adapted to different formats. Like you can crop a photo into like portrait dimensions for real ads, just so that they look a bit better. I've added a quick guide here that you can have a look at. Another way to get more engagement is to take part in any like awards that we have to get your name out there. So you can nominate people in your club and your community for awards like the Honors and the Community Awards. And you can also take part in campaigns that we do comms for, like Volunteers Week, Coaching Week, or International Women's Day. Right, so we've gone over three things. We've understood the basics of creating a brand, gone over how to make it accessible, and now we've gone over what performs well. So now we're going to go over to risk management, which is very important. So yeah. So responsibilities. It's worth noting that as a social media creator, you do have a lot of responsibility because you are reaching out to not only your own following, but also potentially everyone that has access to the internet. So it's really important to take care to check things before posting. Obviously, mistakes do happen. Personally, I do get nervous whenever I post on socials, so making fear of like typos, getting someone's name wrong, all the rest of it. And honestly, it happens. We're all human. It's not the end of the world. The important thing to do is just be honest and just to correct the mistake. But to help prevent any mistakes, be sure to schedule time to step back away from your screen and come back and review it, or having someone else review it. That is also very good. So moving on to taking photos responsibly. So first off, we have a link to the imagery policy, which will provide everything you need to know. But as a general summary, when taking photos, you need written permission from the people in the photo and their parents, and for anyone who's under the age of 16, their parents and guardians. You'll also need to let them know where the image will be shared. And also you'll need to adhere to any safety and clothing guidelines when taking the photos. Well, you can use photos. So as a general rule, avoid photos that don't belong to you. Ask permission to use photos that aren't yours. The owner will likely ask to be credited, which is fine. They may revoke their permission later on, in which case you'll have to stop using them. Some photos will require a license, and you'll get a fine if you're using photos without one. This is the case for like photos that you just find on Google, for instance. So I'd take care to just avoid using photos from Google. Canva is great for free photos, like I've said. You may need to upgrade to Pro, but it's really good. I've also relied a lot on Unsplash in the past. You can look for the usage terms on the photo that you've picked, which is just there. It says free to use under the Unsplash license. So that's also another good option. Using music. Like I've briefly touched on before, you'll need a license to use music in videos. You can find copyright-free music on YouTube if you just type in like copyright-free music. There are loads of accounts. You can select music to use for Instagram Reels, like I've mentioned before. You may have copyright issues on Facebook, however, because Instagram does give you the option to share to Facebook at the same time. But if you do, you might have the copyright issues on Facebook, but not Instagram. It's very strange. And as a general rule, the music will need to be changed if you share the reel on other platforms. Using fonts. Again, I briefly mentioned this, but make sure that you have the license to use the font that you choose for your brand. So some fonts have an open font license. However, others, you may need a license to use them. Sometimes you might need a commercial license if you want to use the font for like products, merchandise. I've added a link to a guide here, so more info is available. And finally, we've been through all that, and the only thing to discuss now is what opportunities are available through BF. So here is a general rundown of what we'll discuss. So first off, probably the easiest thing to do, share your content with us. We like seeing people's content and sharing it. So there are two main ways to share your content. You can tag BF in your social posts, and we'll aim to repost where we can. Or you can email media@britishfencing.com, and we will share your content directly to our platforms. Just remember to give us like context about what the content is, because we might not know, and we'll be like, what is this from? Who took this? And also, just as a general reminder, safety and clothing guidelines need to be adhered to as well. Another way to share your content is through the Sword. The Sword is BF's membership magazine. It's available online via that link there. And also the articles online are compiled biannually in like the PDF edition. Again, you can email media@britishfencing.com to share your stories. We have forms available to help you promote your opportunities. We'll post these on our website as news posts and on social platforms. Once you submit them, obviously they'll need to be approved by BF. We have the referee request form. We have the referee education form for if you are hosting like an assessment, for instance. Or we have the job posting form if you have like any vacancies you need help promoting. You can also make sure that your coaches and clubs are findable on the Club Finder and the coach register. If you're running events that aren't run via Sport80, they can be sent directly to BF. We'll add them to the website manually. Events are also promoted in the weekly newsletter and social media. In terms of other things that we do, we always want to hear new ideas. Obviously, we're a fairly small team. Currently, we have 3 people on the media team, but we try and do what we can within resources, and we always want to hear new suggestions for things. So, media accreditation. This is for BF events. Anyone wanting to take photos using like professional or semi-pro camera equipment needs to apply for accreditation ahead of the event. So this is any kind of camera with a detachable lens or using a kind of tripod or a monopod. This is for still photography only, so you're not allowed to use you're not allowed to use pro or like semi-pro video equipment. It doesn't give you access to the field of play, just as a disclaimer. And that needs to be done ahead of time of the event. So there is like a deadline that we advertise to get your accreditation in by. Lastly, volunteering at BF events. We have so many different ways of getting involved on the media team. We have photography, helping out with the live stream, updating social media, videography, helping with interviews, and finally, technical support for the video replay system. Now that last one seems like a bit of a weird choice, like how is this related to media? But actually, because the live stream uses the same feed as the video replay system, they're both technically related. And just as like a general closing note, I guess, I can't express enough how important like getting involved is to increase your brand's presence and just your own presence. It's a really great way to network since you get to meet new people. It also puts you on our radar. We do look at people who volunteer a lot and give back to the community. And I know I personally and other people have nominated people for BF Honours for this in the past. Again, as I've mentioned previously, BF Honours, great source of PR. Finally, it's a really great way to learn new skills and give something back to your club. So me personally, I'm an introvert, and the only thing I'd ever done prior to volunteering was making like pretty graphics and things. I'd literally never been to a fencing competition like beyond Bucks at uni. So my first volunteering experience was in 2022 at BYC's, which little did I know at that point that was the biggest BF event of the year, and it's 3 days long. So I get there, and one of the first things I'm told is, here's this camera, go up to this person, ask them to smile, and take a photo of them. And I was absolutely terrified. But you know what? I did it, and I felt really proud of myself for having like put myself out of my comfort zone. And now I can just go up to a group of people who look like they're having fun and just ask them if they want a photo. And I'm always like in the field of play, trying to get the best photos that I can of the action. So what I'm trying to say with this is the fact that good social media is actually less about sitting behind a computer making graphics, but actually going out there and trying new things and learning from other people. I've learned so much about how media works from other people, and also like finding out about different parts of our community based on going to different events, which helps to inform like any gaps in our comms. It's also massively improved my confidence. I mean, I'm now sitting here doing a presentation in front of multiple people about my job, so that's nice. So safe to say, if you get the chance to volunteer, especially on the media team, because I'm biased, do it. You'll learn so much, and you'll bring so much back to your social media, which will help to improve your overall presence. So yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, do let me know, and email media@britishfencing.com with any